Technical error.
You want to push it? Do you want to push it? Oh, there we go. Here we are. Good morning. Very wee bit of technical hitch there. Good morning, everyone. Morning, Jim.
Morning.
This topic is find the gap. So today we're going to speak about how
Did
to
you
create.
know that this is episode 138 of the Fife Property Shows?
I was
literally
setting it up
means for 138 weeks, every Saturday morning, we've done a show live every single Saturday morning where people can interact with us all the time. We're up to 138. We're coming up to 3 years doing this show. And the knowledge and information that buyers and sellers and landlords and tenants as well, I've got to say, can get out of this is probably pretty dramatic in terms of what you could learn. It literally, if you combine all this information, this is literally a degree course in buying and selling property and letting property as well, and investing in property as well. This is literally a degree course when you look at it like that. So what have we got this morning, Richard? Finding the gap.
There is so much. Yeah. Yes, find the gap. It's how to create the buy-to-let niche that's perfect for you. As I was going to say, Jim, we are live this morning. Jim's streaming through TikTok and things. I'm on the social media platforms at this end and also our YouTube channel. It is interactive. Please join in. If we could take questions while we go, we will. Otherwise, we will do them all at the end. All right. Yeah, how to create your buy-to-let niche that's perfect for you. What's your thoughts on that, Jim? Creating a niche. Do you have a niche?
Yes, I do. I definitely think I do not get involved in student lets. I do not get involved in holiday lets. I do not get involved in. Basically, what I do is I have everything systematized. It is like the McDonald's of property investment. Literally, the system of that operate. It works every single time, and it's guaranteed to be successful every single time. This is why I say to everybody, it's like I know the answer to how successful I'm going to be when I invest in a property before I actually buy the property and start the journey. And some people out there think, cocky bugger. but the reality is, it works every time, and it's worked for 30 years, and I'm the top 1% in Britain in terms of wealth.
Yeah,
so you can't deny that. Go homeless unemployed to top 1% in wealth in Britain. It's like, what does that say then? If you can't believe that, then there's no hope for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's tried and tested, and like, I know you don't like it, but dare I say, it's rinse and repeat. It's just rinse and repeat each time.
Be careful though. Be careful what you say about rinse and repeat, because rinse and repeat is a term we actually coined. Rinse and repeat is a term which is often used by what I call gurus now.
Yeah, I know
the fake gurus, the ones that actually sell the courses. They begin to adopt the same language as property investors like myself actually use, that are extremely successful in the property investment business. So they adopt that language to mirror us. And then there's an assumption by the public and the perception. And I've got to say their vulnerability as well to a degree, because everybody wants to be really wealthy and successful. And if somebody actually, vaguely shows any impression of being able to help them become extremely wealthy and successful, they jump on it like a rat up a drain pipe, I would say. And the difficulty is all they're there to do is part you with your money.
Yeah,
that's what a foodie does.
Yeah, it's really easy for people to kind of mimic what the professionals and the people that are experienced, like yourself, Jim, that have done it for so many years, they could mimic that, and people could get lulled into a false sense of security with them, and then, like you say, end up parting with money and learn the hard way.
For me, this is all about, do you really get value from what you do? And you get the people out there that are extremely loyal fans to their furu. And there's, it's got to be them and all that. Okay, so how successful are you at this? I've not bought anything yet. and how much have you invested in this so far? I've invested about £30,000 over the last 5 years. So you've been at this £30,000 your last 5 years, and you're still no any further forward than you were before. You're exactly where you are. But it's great fun, isn't it?
That's frightening. Yeah.
Because you get what you call professional functioneers, people that genuinely love going to functions and training events, because the camaraderie it's involved, and they're convinced by their furu that We're on a totally different subject, aren't we?
I know. We'll get back on track. It's okay.
Let me get this out of the way because I'm on my soapbox. They're convinced by their furu they've got to be about other successful people on that track to go with them. No, you can just sit and watch our wealth creation show from start to finish for the 65 episodes we've done, and you'll literally have a masterclass right there every single time. And there is, every other week we do the lettings and we do the sales, so we change over every week in terms of the Fife Property Show. So today is all about lettings, and the one we're going to talk about, and we'll move on for that subject, by the way. But if you've got any comments to say about that, then please feel free. Please feel free to make your comments. Please feel free to ask questions. We will cover them at the end. This roughly takes about an hour to go through this, but it takes an hour because it's based on experience, expertise, and wisdom. It's not us. It's really doing this. It's what we've learned over the years. It enables us to do that, and it's the experience and the wisdom and the dare I say the trauma that I've been through over the last 30 years in property investment that teaches you what to avoid and actually to stick to your knitting. Stick to your knitting. Do what you do best and do it outstandingly. If you look at every single, this is a wealth creation show, isn't it? If you look at every single extremely successful person in this world, and I mean successful as in wealth, and let's talk about rich, mega rich. If you look at all these people, and I'm talking about athletes as well, if you look at the elite athletes that are making a fortune, the Tiger Woods and all the rest of it, every single one of these people in every single different field is in their top 1% of what they do in that field. Now, if you go below the top 1%, the rest of them really don't make that much money. They just make a living out of it. But the top 1% make an absolute fortune out of it. So this is the key here, is to specialize in what you do, whatever it is you do, not just property investment. It could be, you could be the best accountant in the country. I mean, I've got to admit, I was. You'll need a set of double doors to get my head out of here. I listen, the one thing you've got to learn about me is, I say all these things, but I really don't take myself too seriously. We'll have a good joke about it and a good laugh about it, because I don't take it seriously. But the key is the people that are the most successful in the top 1% in Britain, and then even in the world, and earn the most money, are the people that specialize in that particular industry, in that field that they're doing. And that's why they're extremely wealthy in that field, because you will get paid huge amounts of money, and you will attract huge amounts of money for being the top 1% in that field. You will not if you're the other 99%. You will just make a decent living out of it. Some will get by, and some will go, yeah, I've got a fantastic lifestyle. Look at my Ferrari. Okay, but it's leased. It's like you don't actually really own it. So you've really not got any, what I usually say is you've not got a pot to piss in.
Athletes is a good example, because you've got athletes, and then you've got athletes that are at the top of their game, and they're making incredible wealth through endorsements and things like that, and putting themselves out there. But like we say, that is a wealth creation show topic,
which is on Monday at 12:30. So watch out for that one.
Yeah, Monday, and we're actually talking about what is true wealth. So
what is the meaning of true wealth? Now that's going to be a huge subject. I tell you what. You'll be surprised what I'm about to tell you, what the meaning of true wealth is. But check it out on the Wealth Creation Show at 12:30 on Monday. Let's talk about this. This is all about creating the buy-to-let niche. Yes, you're absolutely right, Richard. I concentrate on a particular type of let, and it's standard residential renting. It is PRT in Scotland, AST in England, which is the assured short hold tenancy, and PRT is the private residential tenancy in Scotland. That is what I do all the time for property investment. I was going to say day in, day out, but I don't actually do anything anymore, do I?
I do it day in, day out.
I just like, oh, that's what I'm going to buy. This is what I'm going to buy. This is what I'm going to buy. It's almost become like a game of Monopoly. So that's what I concentrate on. But buy-to-let is undergoing a massive transformation. You've got to understand that. Right now, actually, in Scotland, especially in England, they're vilifying landlords. Now, I got an email the other day from the think tank for the government in England. And they were actually inviting me to a conference. And what they said to me was, oh, we're going to have to sort out these rogue landlords. Now, we reckon these rogue landlords are the landlords we need to sort out are 1 in 8. And I went, whoa, wait a minute, that's 12.5%. 2 years ago, you told me, and this is their figures, you had 2 million landlords in England, and 10,000 of them were the rogue landlords. That's 0.5%. Yeah. So all of a sudden, you've changed the rules and included another 12% of private landlords. to justify your story that you're telling the public. See how that's done?
Yeah.
That is frightening. That is what they are doing. They are vilifying landlords, and the Scottish government's vilifying landlords as well. And I won't stand for it, because I've been looking after people for the last 30 years in their homes and spending an absolute fortune. I've been sacrificing my holidays, not going on holiday, because I couldn't afford to do it, because somebody's heating system needed done, somebody's kitchen needed done, somebody's windows needed done, somebody couldn't afford to pay their rent, and I had to give them a buy to help them in their tenancy, to help them in their life for their children as well. And I had to make the sacrifices for that, not the tenant. So I'm not going to sit here and let anybody castigate private landlords, especially if you've never walked in my shoes or lived my life.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so the regulations are actually tightening, legislation's changing. Short-term profiteering has fallen away through the tax law changes. As a result, many landlords are actually beginning to sell up. Landlords are beginning to sell up.
Yep.
Tenants are beginning to have less homes. There's interest rates are going up. They're not letting them put their rents up to reflect that. There's been tenants sitting in situ for the last 5 or 6 years on the same rent. Landlords have never increased the rent. They've now stopped increasing that rent, so they can't even catch up with where they were before.
Yeah.
And that is the ticking time bomb that the Scottish government's got coming. And probably it's exploded now. They just don't realise that's happened.
Just going to say it's
the ramifications of what's happening is going to be catastrophic.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I've seen more and more, and even just this week, I've been dealing with a few people, and people are selling up, and that is the unfortunate result of that. But if you're in it for the long term, buy-to-let can still be profitable and a good route to financial security, particularly if you serve an overlooked segment of the local market and find that niche, like we said, Jim, what you do yourself and what others do. Each individual will have a different strategy and a different niche. And I think it's important to look at things like identifying gaps in the local market, looking beyond appearances, playing to your strengths, depending on what they are as an individual, and what your capabilities are, becoming a popular figure. A good example of that, Jim, in the local area, and targeting the very best tenants as well.
I'll quickly say about the popular figure. We're going to talk about it later on, but you stick your head above the parapet, you're going to get eggs thrown at it.
Yeah, you will, of course.
That's the reality. And because I've done that for the last 30 years, I've got to where I've got, but you take a bit of flack about it. Mm-hmm. And it's not about stepping over their people to get where you're going. It's about bringing people with you on that journey. There's plenty of rooms on all the beaches of the world for everybody, by the way. We don't all need to sit at work all the time, and that's the reality. So come and join me on the beaches of the world. That's what we're talking about. This is what the show's all about. So before we talk about that, it's like what you said. There's plenty to unpack here, and we're going to break it down in sizable chunks of inspiration and expertise to give you that head start in actually creating the perfect niche for you. Richard, let me talk about this first one we want to talk about, is identifying the market. And identifying the gaps in the market.
Yeah.
How do we actually go about identifying the gaps in the market for property investment? What does that look like? How does it sound? What is it? All that taste, touch, and all the rest of it. I've been reading a book this morning, by the way.
You seem quite fired up this morning.
All the rest of it. But if you were to put it into a summarised version, what would that actually look like?
Well, I mean, every neighbourhood has at least one gap in its market, and that might be the supply of rental homes that are there, or the quality that's on offer, or so it's a good start to your niche if you look at where there's room for improvement in these areas. So if you're looking at maybe the quality of homes, or looking at what's actually on the market, I think is quite good. Look through the websites, look what's on for let, and see what level they're at and how you could possibly improve on that. Do you know what I mean? There is quite a lot of good quality homes at the moment for rent, and I've seen that improve over the last few years quite a lot, but there's always room for improvement within reason, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. There is always room for improvement.
What is it that you did, Jim, that your niche, what did you do different to find your gap in the market when you started out and through your journey?
The first bit of inspiration I saw was actually the Cook report when I was about 16 years old.
Mhm.
Now, the Cook report was an investigative journalist, if anybody knows Roger Cook, and he
Yeah.
was going about and he was obviously investigating certain situations. And admittedly, it was a slum landlords in London. But, you know, there wasn't that many really, but they're focusing on it. And when I started to see what the landlords were offering for like £1,000 rent a month at that time, and that was in the that's probably mid 1980s or early 1980s. When I saw that £1,000 a month for somebody living in what was infested with cockroaches and stuff like that, and how these landlords wouldn't, how landlord, I wouldn't say landlords, how that landlord was treating these people and not actually doing anything about it as such. It planted a wee seed. Now it took 10 years later or something like that for that seed to grow, but it still resonated with me about is there a gap in the market. So when I began to start in the beginning, I started to look at it and think, okay, property investment, let's revisit it. I tell you what, let's do some homework. Let's put an advert in the paper. I've not even got anything by then, by the way. I've not got a property yet, but I'll put an advert in the paper, and I'll see what the response is to that. So I put an advert in the paper. Nowadays it would be social media, and what the response is to that particular type of let. And I tell you what, it was pretty overwhelming. And then I proved that it's like there's demand for this at that rental level. Because when I started getting inquiries, I asked them what their situation was, and I'm like, definitely demand for this. So that's when I went out and bought my first property in the standard residential renting, monthly rent every single month. You look after the house, you make sure everybody's looked after inside, wind and water tight, and they make it a home. I always believed, I've given you a house. I'm not here to be your police. I'm not here to control you and tell you what you should be doing. It is now your home. You can make it what you like, but just don't destroy it and don't be antisocial and pay your rent on time. That was my ethos when I first started. Because everybody has a right to enjoy the quiet peace and comfort of their own home. And to a tenant, that is their home, and to their family. So why should you be, what are you doing? How are you doing this? How are you painting that wall pink?
Trying to micromanage a person's life.
Right, and you're there for the next 5 years. Why am I telling you how to paint the blooming walls? And don't paint it in pink. All I say is, as long as you rectify it back when you leave to what it was before. So it's neutral. It's fine with me. Sometimes I really didn't bother. I just said, yeah, it looks all right like that, actually. Just leave it. No need to paint it when they moved out. So, and I never bothered about it. So that's what got me first into buy-to-let, to ask your question in a roundabout way.
Yeah, no, that's fine, and I think that's a good thing to hear for somebody what their journey's been as well. And if anybody's listening and they've been at it a while or they're just starting out, do you know what I mean? Where are you in finding your gap in your niche and your local market, if it is Fife or if it's out with? But definitely, check online, look at listings that are online, look at how they are, look at how you could maybe improve it, and that's a good way to start as well. Also, looking at gaps between the sorts of people moving to the area. And what kind of homes are available for them. That's a good thing as well. Research maybe what's happening locally in terms of regeneration, transport links. We've got the train link coming, so think about what that's going to bring. Look at new employers and things. Sometimes you've got big employers. So we've got like Diageo.
That's a big telltale sign, isn't it? New employers, as soon as or new corporate
development on that.
For example, when McDonald's appears on your doorstep, they know there's money there, and they know there's an audience there as well, and there's jobs there as well. I mean, admittedly, I argue that they take them away from other local restaurants and all the rest of it because people choose where they want to go, and there's a finite market. That's in a roundabout way. But if they decide to invest, they're spending millions and millions of pounds on research and development, and in order to know that this is the right decision for them to open up in that area. So when these things come along, there's a pattern of behaviour happening. Therefore, when a market's going to start to boom in any particular field, whether it's buy-to-let or whether it's actually property sales or investment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and think about what these kind of businesses and, like I said, the transport links, like the train station things, what kind of people that's going to bring to the area and what kind of houses they're going to need. Is it going to be people looking for maybe a flat or an apartment, or is it going to be families looking for homes? Do you know what I mean? If they're coming here with their families to work. So they're all the types of things to think about and then start to build what your gap in the market, what gap in the market you're going to fill and what your niche is going to be. And a really important one, and if you've got a really knowledgeable local letting agent, they're a great first port of call to get their insider knowledge and ask them what types of homes they're maybe missing or sorely crying out for because they've got the demand for but don't have on their stock. And that'll give you an idea as well.
We had the conversation the other day with Tumia, where
Yes.
a private Zoom, where he asked us what our expertise and what we identify as the gaps in the market and where he should be actually investing in terms of Fife. And how you should be doing it. Incidentally, somebody asked this question this morning on social media, and they said, if you were to go back to when you first started buy to let, what would you tell your original self now? And I said, buy more and trust the fact that it's because no one else is doing it, it still will be successful.
Yeah, because sometimes people get a bit of the fear factor about something that no one else is doing, but really that's your opportunity, that's your gap.
How's no one else doing this? This seems so successful. This seems to work definitely. And how on earth is no one else doing it if that's the case? Newsflash, you might be the first person into that market.
Yeah.
And literally, I was one of the first people in this area into property investment and buy to let market. And then everybody else started to look at me and go, wait a minute, what are you doing that you're so successful? And then they all started piling in on the back of that. But most of these people are actually gone now. Most of these people, when I first started, are actually out of this market now. They don't realise or have, for me personally, I don't think they've got the long-term vision. I don't think they've got the thought process about what they wanted to do with this and how they wanted it as a vehicle to effectively, I joke when I say this, but I became a property time lord. Because my only point of doing property investment was to buy back my time, and buy back my time was more important to me because I could then spend the time where I want to spend it to and invest it where I want to invest it, rather than having to sit and do a 9 to 5. Well, it wasn't a 9 to 5 really, because I was a financial controller and financial director in the industry. It was literally 160 hours a week. My working day finished at 11:59 at night and started at 12 o'clock 1 minute later, every single day for 7 days a week. And that was literally for, since I started after I came out of college, when I became a trainee accountant, I just worked continuously. And then when I got involved in property investment, I did it all myself, and I'll continue to work all the time as well. I always say, let's get temporarily ambitious to be permanently lazy.
Yeah,
that's a great saying.
That's a good one.
Let's get temporarily ambitious to be permanently lazy. That's what I always wanted, and that's what I always dreamed of, and that's what my vision was. And to be able to do what I want to do, but also just be able to help other people out and need that help. It otherwise wouldn't get help from anyone else. And I do mean financially, and I do mean things like this, knowledge-wise and expertise, and actually giving that back to the community with no strings attached. There's no hidden agenda here. We're not about selling you courses or anything like that. This is about giving you a masterclass every single time in a particular field every single week. And the same with the wealth creation show as well. Yeah. That's exactly the same as well. Now, people talk about, you should be monetizing that. You'd make an absolute fortune. You'd be making 7 figures every single year. And it's like, how much more do I need?
Yeah. But it's a good point that you make about the gap, like the gap in the market that you found, Jim. And our advice and my advice would be, if you are looking to start out, or maybe you're in that early stages of your journey, and you find a gap in the market and think, why is no one else doing this? Don't be afraid. I mean, research, and don't just jump in and maybe make a costly mistake. But it might turn out that you found the gap that no one else did. So, I mean,
trust and believe in yourself.
Yes.
That's the key here when it comes to property investment. By all means, just get in touch with us and run it by us what your thoughts are. We're not going to steal your idea. We've got plenty more stuff to do ourselves. We don't need yours. But the reality is, if you want, just run it by us. We'll do a private Zoom session and just say, this is what I'm thinking. This is where I'm going. Great stuff. You're on the right track.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, and that reinforces this point about speaking to a local letting agent, a knowledgeable agent about the area. They will be able to give you the best advice. Whether it's in Fife or out with, if you're watching out with Fife.
Richard, you've hit the nail on the head, because often people see Fife properties and they go, oh, well, it's just Fife. But what we're talking about here, and what we've always talked about, has always been applicable to the whole of the UK, if not generally the world, in terms of how everything works. After all, literally what we're talking about now is effectively, bring it down to the basics, is a game of Monopoly.
Yeah.
And that's a universal thing.
In essence, it is, yeah.
All we're doing is applying the local rules and the local circumstances into that template and actually duplicating it every single time.
Yeah.
So,
and that's basically wrapping up gaps in the market and how to identify the gaps that could be beneficial to you.
you were talking about looking beyond appearances then. What do you
Yes.
mean by that?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of maybe buyers and investors and things will maybe look to. A lot of people like to modernise the old Victorian kind of terrace, 3-bed semi, or do you know what I mean? And that tends to be a safe bet for them.
No,
But anything less classic tends to be less popular, and that creates the opportunity for an imaginative landlord, I
I
would say.
disagree. I disagree. The template for success works every time.
Yeah, but then I think,
You know what it is, Richard? I think a lot of people out there, and you're absolutely right, this is what does happen. You know,
yeah,
you're saying this is why you're saying this. What does happen is the loved idea of being on the, what's it Sarah Bainey used to do?
property ladder, no.
Yeah, property ladder. They love the
Yeah.
idea of having property ladder and having a nice, or grand designs and having a nice landscape garden and doing it all up and all the rest of it. But they don't realise what market they're playing to. They're trying to sell. They're trying to sell sirloin steak in burgers and chips territory. Gordon Ramsay talks about it all the time. It's like they're trying to sell the best of the best, unique, and they're in probably the most location ever to have any restaurant where nobody's got any money at all.
Know your audience, basically.
Yeah, absolutely know your audience. So what do we need to know more about that then when you talk about that?
Yeah, I think considering things like flats and apartments, which are so popular at the moment and always have been, they just kind of, obviously there's peaks and troughs with kinds of property types and things, but flats and apartments are always quite a safe bet. Here in Fife, I tend to see a lot of interest in the ex-local authority, 4 in a block, 2 and 3 bedrooms. They rent all day long.
Hallelujah. It's like
Yeah.
the best properties ever. And it's because I tell you what, I'm going to give the big up to the local authority building. Years ago, the local authority built properties. They're a brilliant standard. They are workhorses. They'll stand the test of time. They'll be here way after your kit builds are falling down and falling apart and having to be repaired, because they were built properly. But the great thing about them is every room is very, very spacious, and every room in every garden is big as well. So there's a huge benefit. And this is just the flats. You know, this is just the flats as well. The flats are huge. The flats are like what you would, you know, the size of a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom flat ex-local authority in this area is almost like, except it's not got the higher ceiling, it's almost like when you go into the Victorian villas, you know, the upper apartments in the Victorian villas that you get. It's kind of the same floor space, but it's not the same height and it's not the same finishings. But you can play to your market and make it perfect for that. And it's at a very affordable price for investment. And it allows you then to be affordable price for renting. I talked to someone the other day, a journalist, who was actually doing some research. And when he got to the end of the conversation with me, he says, you know, when I came into this, I've got to admit, I was very jaded and I was really against private landlords. But after speaking to you, it's like, holy moly. It's a completely different thing from what you get told. So
people have this perception that
actually a convert to the fact that no, we are actually. I mean, I told them the typical example. We're telling it, you know, record rents are rising at a phenomenal rate. Okay, let's look at my rent in 2006 for a 2-bedroom ex-local authority in the Leedmouth area was £450. That rent is now £495. So my rent's gone up literally 10% in that time, and inflation's gone up 70% in that time.
Yeah.
So where's the and that's most landlords, by the way. For anybody that's watching that doesn't understand that, that's the majority of landlords. What you're getting fed about rental prices going sky high is from people like CityLets and these city organisations. They only rent to premium property and people. In other words, they've all got wonderful jobs and they're earning an absolute fortune. And it's their rent is going up sky high. Man on the street, it's like skint. Their rent isn't really going up that fast in comparison to what they're actually reporting on the television. It's lies, damn lies, and statistics, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a vast differential from rental prices in like Edinburgh city centre, Glasgow city centre, than there is to the streets of Fife.
But they're using it to vilify everybody else and say we're all putting them up astronomical amounts. Look at my interest only there than now. Most of my mortgages have actually gone up in interest only because the mortgage has gone up. But one of my mortgages has actually gone up from, and this is just one.
So that's the one you said about 200.
£134 interest only a month. In 6 months, it's gone up to 365.
It was 200. I remember you said
So 220 quid I've added onto my interest every single month on that one property, and it's £550 a month to rent it. And I can only ever put up 6% if I actually ask for it. So 6% of that is 30 quid. So out of 220 quid I've just had to absorb, I'm only allowed to recover at the very most from the Scottish Government is 30 quid.
Yeah. And if you think about that, you think of a landlord that's got 2 properties, and that would
Out of business.
ruin them. Yeah.
I'm very fortunate I could actually take that because I've got so much equity and so much margin in there I built in over the years, because I'm not a let's mortgage yourself up to the hilt and get every debt possible. I need to reinvest in the properties all the time and keep the right tenants and keep the occupancy rate up. That's my sort of thing. That's what I focus on. It's about, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about that in a minute.
So consider flats. You will often get a lot more space and for your money, and tenants will love the convenience of where they maybe are located, kind of they're above shops and things as well. The local life and transport and things are close by. Think about that. Don't limit your search to maybe like the swankier streets that everybody's fighting over and they're in high demand. Look at the next best thing, and kind of the less premium locations, or I would say like a mid-range. Like mid-range, it's like when you're renovating, stick to mid-range. Don't do basic, don't do expensive. Stick to mid-range, and the ex-local authorities are a good shout.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, instead of buying the brand new car, buy the one that's 1 year old.
Yeah.
And you save an absolute fortune, and you've got a car that runs for all that time anyway. It doesn't matter. And it's considerably less in value. And it gives you, it still gets you A to B. That's all it's there for.
Yeah.
You know, what else do you need? It's A to B. That's, you're going. It's like, oh, but I need people to look at me and make me feel good. I need to put it on Instagram and Facebook. Nah, you didn't need any of that. If you learn to forget about that, then you're able to focus on the prize rather than actually focus on the recognition that goes on in between. So that's how I think about it. I would rather have the prize than the recognition. I couldn't care less about the recognition. I mean, I know we're on here, but this isn't about getting attention. This is about teaching and letting people understand what they need to do and how they need to invest in property. If they are investing in property, how they need to look after a tenant. The tenant's the most important thing, by the way, not the money.
Yeah.
If you've not got enough money to replace the boiler and it definitely needs replaced, and you're about to go on holiday and you can get your money back, cancel your holiday and get the boiler. Yeah. That's the type of things you've got to do as a landlord.
Yeah, and a lot of what we do today is kind of influenced by, like you say, Instagram and things that are fashionable. But terraced houses and flats that are from like the 50s and 80s and 90s, all these types of properties, they're maybe not fashionable, but they make excellent buy-to-let properties.
Yeah, because you now have the money to invest and actually do it perfect inside. Mm-hmm. You know where I first started. I bought properties in a street that no one else would want to live in, and literally I bought a lot at low value when I first started, and I just got carried away, and it was like everybody was you're going to change the name of that street one day. I was like, no, all right, I won't. But what I did was I made them look absolutely beautiful inside. And I made the outside look absolutely beautiful as well. So everybody was like, wow, I never knew they were like this. It's like, let me in now. And that's all I did. You know, some of the guys in Aberdeen do exactly the same thing. They've actually, everybody says the Aberdeen market's on its arse, basically. But the reality is, for the people that actually provide that type of service and that type of product and that type of accommodation, it's not. Because if there's an oversupply of rental property and stock in the market, then they'll go for yours first because of the way you've presented it and what you're giving people on offer. So therefore, your rent level stays the same, but your occupancy rate, which is the most important thing, the occupancy rate is higher. Occupancy rate is the length of time somebody stays in a property. So the best you can get is 100%, which means somebody stays the whole year, 12 months in your property, and they pay rent every single month. That's the credit control rate, by the way.
Yeah.
So you want a 100% occupancy rate, you want a 100% credit control rate as well. And the credit control rate is measured by how much the rent that they should pay to how much the rent that they are paying. That's your credit control rate as well. So that's your 2 KPIs you look after.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very important. But as you say, Jim, any home that looks plain and unremarkable from the front can be made more attractive. But but the job is perceived as maybe costly and complex. However, changing maybe the windows, the front door, or repainting outside, maybe a different colour or something a wee bit more, do you know what I mean, in vogue, should I say, or on trend, can really change things up, and often for less than what you would think.
It is so simple. That's really what it comes down to. It is a lick of paint on the front door. It is nice feature on the windows. I mean, I literally got someone to go around and actually paint the bits around the windows and outside the stonework, a particular colour on every single one of my properties. So everybody knew which ones were my properties because they all stood out. They all stood out as nice and presentable, and everybody else's properties looked, they're not that good. So when someone came into a street and they looked at the properties for rent and they were like, wait a minute, that looks pretty good from the outside. Curb appeal.
Yeah.
And literally it was just a lick of paint.
And you've done like full circle with your properties, Jim, because you had your template for what you've done with everyone in terms of colour scheme and carpets and like floor coverings and things. But now we've done full circle and we're doing a lot of renovations, and we've changed that slightly in terms of colour scheme and, do you know what I mean, just to fit in with what's on trend now. Yeah.
But the kitchen design stays the same every single time because it's so ergonomic. It's perfectly laid out. It allows someone to go from all the right places. So the kitchen design, the layout is exactly the same every single time. Just a new kitchen, a different style of kitchen gets put in. So there's nothing different about that formula except the colour schemes and the style, I would say. And when I remember when I first started out as well, I just went down to Argos and I got all the furnishings. So I used to do furnished properties. I would get my beds from a local supplier. I'd get my covers and all the rest of it from Argos, and I would just unwrap everything and I would just throw it all on there, iron it all, obviously, and I'd just throw it all on the beds and that. So when somebody walked in the door, they went, "Wow, it's a brand new house." It's like I'd bought the property for £9,000, by the way. But I tell you what, it looked like a £50,000-60,000 property when somebody walked in the door because of how it was presented. And that's the return on investment you can get. And that could still be done today. It's just the figures are different. Because remember, £9,000 30 years ago is a totally different value now. Well, they're actually about 55 now, or thereabouts, in terms of the value. See about depreciation? Appreciation happens as a natural byproduct. Just waiting over time. It's the capital goes up anyway over time. That's the reality. So the longer you keep a hold of it, the more it appreciates. The better it is actually for leveraging yourself if you ever want to. Oh, we'll get into that. We'll talk about that on the Wealth Patient Show.
Well, just that brings us on nicely, I think, because listening to you, Jim, you obviously enjoy what you do, and I think the next part of this is playing to your strengths. And work is more fulfilling and fun when you're interested in what you do, and that includes being a landlord. So having a connection with your chosen market is a great start. And so there's things to think about, like there is some things to think about when you're doing that. So your own lifestyle, either now or in the past, which homes can come up trumps, which ones fall short, and what qualities have made you stay or leave, like I know some have.
Let me talk about that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point about what qualities make you stay or leave. So there's been a couple of moments in my life where I've actually got, I'm just getting out of buy-to-let. And then about 6 months later, I've slapped myself across the face and said, "What the hell are you doing?"
There was a few years ago, you sold a few, Jim, and regret it.
But I've got to say at that time, the profits and the profits available and the money and the return for exiting with certain properties was so good that you couldn't look a gift horse in the mouth, because I wasn't taking it for me. I was taking it to then reinvest in something else. So the numbers worked. It wasn't costing me to do that. It was actually, let's take advantage of capital gains allowances, which are disappearing, by the way. They're down to £6,000 this year, that tax year. Take advantage of the capital gains allowances. Take advantage of things like relief that we're getting because possibly lived in the property before in terms of tax. So it was very, very advantageous to sell. And it was the right time to sell, because the 2 times that I've actually sold is almost at the peak of the market. So I don't know. I've never planned it like that, but I just go, yeah, now's the right time. It's like Buffett says, the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett. He says, don't try and guess the peak of the market. Work out the amount that you're prepared to exit at, and also the amount that you're prepared to stop the loss at. And it's important to actually stop the loss as well, by the way. Because if a market keeps going down, it's no like a gambler does and goes, if I keep putting money in the machine, I might win it back. It's like, no, now's the time to go. So that's just as an important market to know as well. So know what your top end is, know what your bottom end is, and actually play to that strength. And don't go back in hindsight and go, you know, if I'd waited another 6 months, I could have made another 5 grand. And it's like, hey, if your granny had balls, you wouldn't be here now. And I know it's a horrible expression.
That's nice for Saturday morning, Jim.
I know, but it's true, isn't it? You know, my friends, my dad and all his friends used to say that to me when I was at the golf club. They used to they're pontificating. Well, if your granny had, it's like you wouldn't be here, would you? So why? How could you dwell on that? So I think that's I think keep in mind, no, obviously the statement that I said, but the thought process behind it.
No, I know that.
Your talents and tastes, you're adept at finding home improvement bargains, or do your friends compliment you on your style and design ideas? That's another one as well. People, I've listened, to be honest, I'm just like magnolia, white skirtings, facings, brown beige carpets. Now it's changed to the grey style, white skirtings and facings, and it's the grey sort of carpet, and it's the white kitchens, or it's the different, you know, and that's the formula actually worked every single time. And to be honest, I couldn't care less what anybody else thinks, because it's worked for me every single time. So I think it's important. If it works for me, surely it's going to work for everybody else.
I think it's important with buy to let to not get too carried away and keep it quite simple, but obviously tasteful. A good example of really capitalising on if you've got that knack for obviously like trends and decoration. I think Linda Martin's brilliant at that. She flips property, and the way she dresses the property is just impeccable, and it helps her do that. That's obviously slightly different from buy to let.
That's a sales market.
That's a sales market, but that's a good example, obviously capitalising on being really.
I tell you, actually, when you think about it, there's sort of a precedent set here, even in the social housing sector. So if, and I know this because I've been on the board, many are, you know, housing association board and stuff like that, and sitting in on their discussions, and their specification for a mid-market rent property is different from the specification for a social rent property. So they actually kit it out with a higher spec for a mid-market rent than they do for a social rent, which is a lot less, which is like council housing. Sort of rental level. So they discriminate on that as well. So you know, if you're going to vilify landlords, you have to vilify social landlords as well.
They are landlords as well at the end of the day.
I would argue they are probably more private landlords than we are in terms of their attitude towards returns and investment and all the rest of it, and how they treat things systematically. Sometimes they don't have that ability to have a conscience. You know, when somebody's struggling. A private landlord does have that, because they're not taught to be that systematized person, that robot-like person who just says, well, you no pay your rent, we'll issue the notes to quit, that's your tenancy finished. They'll not sit down with somebody and they'll sit and say, let's get you help, and let's get you this, and let's get that. Some of them won't, some of them will, but that's another story. Your existing knowledge of the area, actually, you were going to talk about this in a minute. Well, actually, you talk about this.
I think
how important
the next strength to think about is your existing knowledge of the local area and how you can adapt on that. Your proximity to the local area. Obviously, if you're in Fife, you'll know, and you've got boots on the ground, you'll know the area. To build local expertise and identify quickly the homes and the locations of these homes that will be good buy-to-let investments, and how well they'll perform, and will they be good investments. There's a lot of properties in Fife, and I'll know the street and I'll be like, that's a good one, that's a good job, because obviously I do it day in, day out. If you've got that knowledge, then capitalise on that. If you don't, speak to people that you know have that.
It's the knowledge. You're exactly right, Richard. There's the knowledge and expertise I did in the early beginning. Everybody used to wonder why I used to sit on all these voluntary boards and voluntary organisations like tenant organisations, and I used to go to all their meetings and stuff like that. As a private landlord turning up at a tenant organisations meeting, like I used to be the one to get picked on all the time because they wanted to throw all the mud against me because I was the only one that was prepared to appear there. So stick your head above the parapet, you get eggs thrown at you. But the great thing is you got a great insight into local areas and how they worked, and also into the housing and how it worked as well. So you knew the places to actually invest in and the areas to invest in as a result of that. So that's another way of doing it. You've just got to have the kahunas. we're on it this morning, eh? You've just got to have it. You've got to have it to be prepared to sit in a meeting as a private landlord while every other person represents tenant organisations, or they're from a tenant organisation. And that's the flack you've got to take from people, including the politicians that sit there, because when the tenants get onto the politicians and they go, what are you going to do about these private landlords? Immediately, they just all look at you as the representation for private landlords. And it's like, well, I'm probably your typical private landlord who'll actually look after somebody and actually be, helpful to their tenant in most circumstances. And actually reinvest in the property to the detriment of themselves. So that is a typical private landlord and what they do. So you've got to be prepared to do that in order to get the rewards. There can be no victory without a struggle.
Yeah, thought you were going to say a battle there, but
well, unless I don't think it is. I don't think it is a battle between two people. So that's why I didn't really use that term.
Yeah.
But there can be no victory in anything without actually a struggle. A diamond is formed from carbon, which gets put under pressure over time.
Pressure.
Yeah, and it's that extreme pressure that forms that diamond, and that's kind of how I look at how you should be as a person. You're going to go through this pressure. You're going to go through this turmoil. You're going to go through these struggles. But you have to understand, you'll never become a diamond if you don't do that.
Yeah.
No one ever has. The people that you see have been so successful at what they're doing, their overnight success, it's taken them 50, 20, 30 years to do, have actually gone through all that. All these people had hard times. Some people you'll see it, Steve Harvey and, people like that, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrologist. All these people have gone through struggling times. There's Elon Musk started in his bedroom. Thought it was a great idea to start PayPal. It's like where he is now. He's putting stuff on the top of the rockets and all the rest of it. But that has to start somewhere, and you have to go through all that struggle and that turmoil to do that.
Yeah, and people like successful people like that have played to their strengths. And just to wrap up on play to strengths, and finding your connections between the local rental market and your own experiences, your own strengths, and your passions as well, you'll find it easier to create popular and profitable homes for rent. And it'll give you a warming sense of pride, I think, if you get that right and do it properly. And I'm sure, obviously, you could vouch for that, Jim, and a lot of landlords out there that are doing the same thing also.
Just to the people watching and tuning in, we will go through comments and questions at the end. We're near enough the end. We've got about 15 minutes to go. And then we're done. We'll go through the comments and questions. If anybody's got anything to say, fire away.
I'm going to let you.
I don't literally. It's not an opportunity to have a go at me by saying fire away.
I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you lead the next bit, Jim.
Oh, really? Become a popular figure.
Yeah.
Property is actually a people business, isn't it? The key to being a successful landlord, and here's one of the keys, is getting called about the best listings when they come up for sale. That's the key to being a best landlord or the best property investor, I would say. You're the one that gets called because you're the one that's seen all the time. And I set that up in the early days where
you've experienced that, Jim.
I even had the local authority referring people to me to sell their homes, because they were wanting quick exits, and actually I used to be on their golden list. They did have a golden list of landlords who are actually preferred landlords for the private rented sector. So when people were struggling, and this is for the people that were homeless. So I was actually accommodating for people that are homeless and looking after these people, when in actual fact, it was meant to be the social housing landlords who were getting free money from the government. And they never actually adhered to any of their quotas. They just ignored that market completely and rented to people that were on jobs and weren't struggling at all in their new houses that they had all paid for them. And that's the type of, and I was the one picking up the things that they should have been doing. And I used to call them out on it all the time. But it was a market for me, it identified as a perfect market. The great thing is I worked hand in hand with the local authority all the time. We looked after the tenant all the time. We got them all, they got them all the help and resources. We still do that today, don't we?
Yeah.
A bit restricted in doing that now because the Scottish government's put the moratorium on evictions and everything like that. And I've told them we can't do this anymore because of your legislation. And please adapt it to accommodate for this so we can look after people the local authority can't look after, and the social housing landlords can't look after as well, because we're happily prepared to do it.
They are obstacles in the way of what we do or what we have done for years. That has drastically changed over the last year.
Top tips for doing something with local estate agents: to be the person, the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets the most oil. I'm profound this morning with all my statements. They've all come to light. So the wheel it squeaks the loudest gets the most oil. That's the reality. That's the reality of the situation. So you need to speak to your estate agents all the time. Remember, be friendly. For God's sake, don't phone up and say, I've been on a property investors course and I'm thinking about investing property, because everybody switches off. Because it's like, oh God, no, another one. Because we've seen so many before. It's like, oh, I've been on a course, and you're all excited and take me around 50 properties, and then next week you're not interested in buying anything because you've gone off the boil. Because your motivation's gone.
Yeah.
That's a different story. Watch Wealth Creation for that, by the way.
Yeah.
We actually discussed that in our playlist on the Wealth Creation Show on our Fife Properties TV channel, and the playlist Wealth Creation Show. So we actually discussed that about going off the boil and how you keep your motivation in these shows. So be regular, be friendly, regular presence. Present them with your mortgage offer or bank statements to show proof of funds that you're registered. Tell them you're ready to go.
Demonstrate you're serious.
Demonstrate you're serious. Demonstrate what position you're in. It's not about, I'm looking, oh, for God's sake, do not say, I'm looking for below market value properties. Switch off.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not remotely interested in people like that. We're there to get the best price for our seller. And often what the below market value properties that you're trying to buy still work for you at the price of the home report or just above it. And we know that. So we're not interested in lowballers or anybody like that. You're fodder. You're used at the last minute. If we've not got anybody else in the pipeline and we are desperate to shift this, we might come to you. We might speak to you. But the reality is, this is how every estate agent thinks, because we've heard it all before. So you don't go in and say you're looking for below market value properties. You're looking for properties where your numbers work.
Yeah.
Where my numbers work. So I'm looking for typically maybe a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom ex-local authority. Not really bothered if it's a house or if it's a flat or an apartment. Preferably ground floor, because I can take an elderly population because they don't have stairs then to navigate. So I've got a bigger market for that type of property, where they want to downsize, maybe sell their big house, release all their money, and just go and live in rent accommodation for the rest of their life. And then just go spend the money.
That's finding a gap or a niche. Yeah.
Spend the money for the rest of their life. You could promote it like that actually on the feed. I'm looking for a person that's
a more mature tenant.
Yeah, more mature tenant. That's it, really, in a nutshell. So that's where I would say, when you talk to an estate agent or you talk to anybody about that, it's and you get it all the time on social media as well, don't you? There's people there going, I'm looking for below market value properties, and it's like, God, no, another one. Yeah. It's like, you've obviously been on a course. It's very, very repetitive, and it's like the double glazing salesman all the time. You just switch off completely. It's like, how are you today, sir? I'll get to the point what you want. That's the first thing I say to them. Get to the point what you want. Oh, well, next time you're in a shop, when somebody says, would you like some help, sir? Instead of saying, no, it's okay, because they're walking away thinking you've said no and oh, it's okay before you finish. Give them a wee fright and say, yes, how can you help me? That's gold. That is gold. It's like, then they go, I'm not really sure now. I didn't expect that. But do you know how I'm reading it in Atomic Habits about habit stacking, about how people have habits that are developed on the back of other habits, and they know the track. Hence the reason why Marks and Spencer's changed their who's next to who's first. Yes,
that's right. When they're instead of
Anyway, the next one to do is be clear about the sort of rental homes you want to offer. Be available to view them, and be on time when you go in, when you go to see them. There's nothing worse than wasting the estate agent's time. It's like this is for you're obviously not going to pay a big fee for this house or whatever it is. So they're not going to attract a big fee out of that either. They're going to spend their time more than likely at the places that are going to get the right fee. So I'm there in a flash. I've done my homework. I'm literally around in 5 minutes. I'm not interested in talking to them about anything because I've done all my homework beforehand. I just want to see if it's wind and watertight and what I can do to it, how much it'll cost me to do any refurbs or anything like that to get it into shape. Then I go back and crunch my numbers. That's it in a nutshell. Because I've got a home report that tells me that, and I could look at that beforehand. Look at the home report before you go.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But here's my top tips. Look at the home report before you go. Even though the home report's a bit negative, ask a couple of questions before you go. There's no point in going to view a property when you know the home report says there's riddled woodworm and it's got loads of damp. It's going to cost 20 grand. If you've not got 20 grand to spend, there's no point in going to see it. Right? But there might be wee gems there, which the home report actually flags up on their standard. You have to understand home reports and how they work. They've got standard get out of jail clauses all the time. You know, the typical is the woodworm. There isn't one hole in the woodworm. It doesn't go away, by the way. If it's got a woodworm infestation, it has to go in the report. The surveyor's seen it, and they say this has woodworm, evidence of historic woodworm, which we don't think's active anymore. They'll say that if it's active or not. And then they say, but you have to make sure there's any guarantees or warranties in place. Now, there's only a couple of holes. Literally, you can spray that yourself for £300 or £500.
Yeah, and properties at a certain age will always come with that advisory.
Yeah. So do all your homework before you go, because there's no point in viewing. The one thing I just don't get about people is they go and view about 100 properties to find one. I view about 100 properties online.
And view maybe two or three.
I find about 5 that I might be interested in. Then I'll throw mud against the wall by emailing the agent and saying, my numbers work at this level. I'm not getting out of my chair, by the way, doing this. My numbers work at this level. Is your client thinking it? Would your client consider anything at that level? And if they say yes, job done, I'm coming to view. If they say no, it's like, I'm not viewing. What's the point in wasting your time?
No.
A busy fool. That's what a lot of investors want to be, because they just want to be excited. They like the journey. They like the excitement. Look at me. I'm an investor. I couldn't care less. I'm not wasting my time.
Yeah.
So I think that's the most important thing as well. You've got to remember when you're looking for and becoming that popular figure in people's minds. Yeah. You don't need to wear a gold jacket, by the way. But people do recognise that, don't they? It's like the guy in the gold jacket. It's like, but then the great thing is when you take the gold jacket off and you walk down the street, nobody notices you. Until you start speaking, and then folk go, I've heard that voice before. So be easy to work with. Only offer if you're going to buy. Don't make ridiculous low offers, and perform quickly if your offer is accepted. Turnaround is quick. You could offer that. That is a great kudos to actually offer. It's like, look, I can complete in 4 weeks, or as quick as the solicitor can get this through. I'm even happy possibly to pay your client's solicitor's fees. Maybe give them a £500 or £1,000 kickback and pay their legal fees to make it go through. If it's at the right price. There's all sweeteners you can add to make that happen for you. Estates are human beings, remember, with a job to do, and it's the straightforward and purposeful landlords and property investors who will go who will go to the front of the queue in their mind, and potentially when potential rental investments hit the market, they might even do it before they hit the market.
Yeah.
To keep you sweet, especially if you're giving them the property to rent.
Yeah. And the people that are easy to work with and quite upfront and, like you say, the purposeful and straightforward, and this is this and this is what I'm looking for, and do you know what I mean? And are nice, then they are the people that people want to work with, and they will ultimately get to the front of the queue. If you're going to be awkward and fickle about things and not quite transparent, then it makes it difficult.
It's like, get him away. I've got another one waiting because they've all been on a property course. I'll just get somebody else.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I think that's the best approach to have if you're wanting to be an investor and want to have an agent by your side and work with you.
And you've got to think like this. If you're an investor, you've got this is pure honesty here. And I know we're all in a safe space, so we can all be. I could talk the truth here. But the reality is there's hundreds of thousands of more people out there are houses to sell for them and houses, people to communicate with. So, and they only need about 200 or 300 people to make a successful business of what they're doing. So in reality, they don't really need your business at all. So if you annoy them, they'll probably just tell you to go away. So that's how you have to play. You know, you don't need to cow down to them or anything like that. But this is, you just have to play that game. You have to be on really good terms with them over the years and build a really good relationship that you can work together over a period of time. I think that's another key to success in the property investment buy-to-let market. Targeting the very best tenants, Richard. How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, we'll finish up with targeting the best tenants. And I think when you offer a rental home that people maybe instantly fall in love with, and they will be happy to pay a premium, and naturally you'll attract maybe the cream of the crop kind of tenants. And we've seen a lot of that lately. A lot of the standard of properties changed a lot, and the cream of the crop tenants you see coming through. A lot of people are renting who didn't so much before. We've said about this, Jim, like, where did all these tenants come from? Where did all these people come from? But yeah, I mean, using the highest quality materials and fittings for the local market either demand or has the potential for. So I mean, using the highest quality materials, I would say stick to mid-range, but still good quality. So be careful overspending.
Highest quality is when you're looking for, you know, the cities where you're looking for professional tenants, and they're 1,500, 2,000.
The rent level's different,
You know, that's the sort of rent level. And it has to match the property as well. By the way, there's no point in having a £20,000 kitchen in a 2-bedroom ex-local authority flat at 50 grand, because you'll never see your money again if you have to exit the market. You'll have lost money. So the highest quality materials, not necessarily just mid-market, depending on what
always say that, mid-range.
And like what I talked about, you know, typicals are B&Q. B&Q do really good kitchens. You have, what's the one up in Perth? The kitchen company up there. Anyway, there's Howden's as well. There's another one.
Good mid-range,
I can't remind off the top of my head.
I'm trying to think who that is, Jim.
A lot of our contractors use them as well. And Magnet.
That's
Magnet, there's a trade division now as well, and Magnet are really good kitchens as well. And you get discounts for being a trade at Magnet as well, rather than actually the public. But they will sell at the public, but the discounts will come to the trade. So does B&Q. You get 10% off if you're a trade, and you spend a certain amount every year, which we do. So we get 10% off all the time, as opposed to the normal customer, which won't get that. And then you've got Howden's as well, which Howden's they drive me crazy, because I get the same kitchen every single time, and I order it again for the next property because of the same layout, the kitchens, and it's exactly the same units. And the next minute, the unit's gone up by £20, £30 for the unit, and I'm like, it's only a month that's passed, and they just paint by numbers and think up a number as they go based on who they're talking to. That's the impression I get from Howden's. It's just whatever Jack the lad you get on the phone, and I hate to say it, but I've stopped dealing with them for that reason. They just aggravate me, because it's like, just give me a consistent price so I know every single time when I'm getting a kitchen that's what it's going to cost. Know this. What budget have you got, and what could I screw you for? That's really,
which is a shame, which is a shame because you worked with them for quite a long time, and it's kind of left a bad taste in your mouth now.
All I hear is, what budget have you got, and what can I screw you for when I get a house? When I go to Magnet, I know what the prices are, I know what I'm getting off. When I go to B&Q, I know what the prices are, I know what I'm getting off. So I like that formula because it gives me certainty, and then I don't have to sit and haggle. Therefore, I don't waste my time, because I could be spending my time on something else more valuable. And then even their kitchen designers are atrocious. You know, I have to often change because, I'll give you a free kitchen design. And it's like they give me a free kitchen design and going, how on earth is that going to fit in here? And how is that going to, we'll change that for you. Holy shit. I might as well have just gone round there and done it myself. It's like, you've got somebody
you could tell you've been frustrated with that.
They don't have a clue what they're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway. So I could tell you. I know you've been frustrated with that, and I wondered if you were going to mention Howden's, but they do supply a good mid-range, but obviously there is.
You know, the convenience of Howden's is you can get a standard product if you need to replace it, but the reality is you really probably don't ever need to replace it, and their guarantee about their ready-built carcasses have lifelong guarantees. I have never ever taking anybody to task at Howden's over a lifetime guarantee. So it's you've got a lifetime guarantee on the carcasses, but you're never ever going to use it for anything because the kitchen's worn out by the time the guarantee could kick in.
Yeah, and I was just going. That was one thing I was going to say. The good thing, Howden's do they're already built.
Ready
units.
built carcasses.
They're not flat pack, which is a really good
you know
thing.
exactly where it's going.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
It's just like Lego. If you love Lego, you'll love the Howden's format. You just that's where I'm fitting it. That's where I'm fitting it. That's where the worktop goes. All the other one as well is the services. This is a top tip if you're designing a kitchen. Try and keep the services in the same place. So keep the sink in the same place, the oven in the same place, and the radiator in the same place, because it's when you move the services that costs a lot of money.
Yeah,
when you start
moving pipework and plumbing,
and electrics and all the rest of it, if you keep everything in the right place and the same place as it was, and you're able just to change a single socket to a double socket, then it'll save you a fortune in fitting a kitchen. It's when the services move, it costs you a fortune.
Yeah, so that's materials and fittings and things. Stick to the mid-range, and that was a good tip there as well, Jim. Concentrate on timeless, durable, and bright interiors. The Scandinavians do that really well. They do like the off-white and the light timber and things, the natural looking thing. Keep things bright and light, and it makes such a difference to a room or a space to attract tenants, and that will really jump out on your listing and at the viewing as well. Also, in terms of attracting good tenants, implement a robust referencing criteria. Now, this includes bank statements alongside your credits, the tenant's credit score. Identify tenants with plenty of disposable income, and also that they could show you evidence of that. And they are ready to be quite transparent in the referencing process. If they're not, instant red flags.
Now, can I just say, you have to be registered with the Information Commissioner if you're taking information from tenants and keeping them on file.
Yes.
So you have to be registered with the Data Protection and Information Commissioner, and you have to have a policy in place in order to do that. Yes, you can if you're a normal buy-to-let investor, maybe just see, can I see sight of it, but you can't keep a hold of it if you're asking for things like bank statements and that. If you're nervous about doing that, then you probably should have a letting agent doing this. But I used to say in the early days to people when they said, why am I sharing my income with you? And I'm like, well, why am I sharing one of my biggest tax-free assets with you? It's like, I'm only letting you have, 70, 80,000 pounds worth of property for the price of 500 quid, which is the rent, as a deposit. And you think you don't have to show me or demonstrate anything to me at all. Of course you do. It's like, how on earth do I know who you are and what background you have? And that's what gets rid of all the people that you don't want in your tenancy. The problematic tenants, the ones that don't pay, the ones that have credit problems, all the rest of it, and the ones that potentially could be antisocial. You're never going to stop them all, but you'll get rid of a lot of them. It's a well-known fact that a landlord that self-manages, listen to this, is 272% more likely. A landlord that self-manages 272% more likely to have a tenant it falls into rent arrears more than 2 months or more. 272% as opposed to using a letting agent. Think about that. Think about the time that you're saving with using a letting agent. Think about the investment you're saving. Think about what else you can do with that time. And to me, that's why possibly I was an idiot in the early days. I did it all myself. I almost killed myself literally and mentally, and burnt myself out because I felt that I needed to do everything and anything. And I didn't understand the principles of leverage and how you can duplicate your hours by getting someone in for a smaller rate than what you could make to do all the donkey work for you in the beginning and the running of the tenancy as well. Guys, I'm not calling you donkeys, by the way. Richard. It's a term, remember.
It's okay.
Just in case anybody goes, wait a minute, what's he just said? No, it's a well-known term to say that doing the work, it gets day in day out. We talk about it as well about even you as a lettings director about there is things that you do day in day out that someone else can do, and you can concentrate your efforts on things that will actually generate more income than actually doing something that generates less income.
Yeah.
When you've got a limited amount of hours in the day, you want to concentrate them on things that will produce more wealth. And we'll talk about what wealth means on Monday at 12:30. See, that was a nice wee play into
I've got it to plug at the end so everybody knows. But
so
I think
by going for the best market, you'll pull in tenants who truly appreciate the quality and the comfort afforded and afford the extra rent without actually stretching themselves. You'll attract the right people. You attract what you put out. If you effectively put out a shitty home and you don't see the amount of landlords out there that I have that go, I didn't really like this property. It's like, oh my God, you should not be renting.
How are you going to expect someone else to?
It's not. I'll qualify that by saying it's not a lot of landlords. It's just a few landlords I come across and they go, I hate this property. And I'm like, well, if you hate it, your tenant will hate it. So you shouldn't be a landlord. You either need to get rid of this one or you need to be out of this market completely because you're not the type of person to represent the landlord population.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think you need to have a property of a certain standard. And if you put that out, you'll get the same people obviously coming in that appreciate it. And like you say, Jim, they'll be prepared to pay a wee bit extra for something that is really nice. And we are going to go to comments now, and I can see Jim smiling. So let's do comments.
The TikTok brigade make me laugh.
Okay, Jim. Let's go through that then.
I love it. Friesla Day, I don't know if that's right or no. It says cue the violins. Oh, brilliant. Thanks very much for that. You've cheered me up no end this morning. And Barry actually says, so not put rent up. I'm for 6 years and the area has been developed. My tenants pay way lower than they should. Yeah, I know. And if you're in Scotland, you've got a problem now because that can't be put up. And costs are increasing as a natural result. There's no doubt about it. I've just explained there in terms of finance and how much landlords have to pay. I mean, you know, cue the violins, folks. But there's another one. I mean, most of them are like £51 6 months ago for the interest-only mortgage, and now they're 118 and 133. So mine's has gone up 100%. And as I said, I can only increase the rent by 30 quid. So I'm absorbing £70 every single month now. But the key here is, it's not cue the violins. The key here is, it doesn't allow me to reinvest that money into the property and for the benefit of the tenant. That's newsflash for most people out there. I don't actually take any money out of my buy-to-let business. It just goes and gets reinvested. I actually don't live on that. I live on this is a wealth creation thing. I live on my day-to-day income as an estate agent. I don't live on my property investment income. That goes back into look after the tenants and build the stock and build something for generational wealth that I can pass on to my children. So they will be able to survive, and the next generations to come will be able to survive as well, because I have done this for them. And now and again, yes, it will give me one-offs about what I want to do, but I'm not talking about buying a Ferrari or Lamborghini or anything like that. I'm talking about just a holiday. To me, an extra special holiday is something at £5,000 or £6,000. That is a luxury for me. A holiday at £5,000 or £6,000. For most people, that's almost like a staple standard every single year. But for me,
I've seen that, and I'm like, how do people afford this? And it's like,
credit card debt. They'll sacrifice. They'll pay today, but they're no concerned about the bill they're going to get for tomorrow
later on. Yeah,
and then that's when everything falls apart and they end up splitting up because they both start arguing about finances. I never wanted to argue about finances either. I mean, Elaine was talking this morning about, you always leave the bathroom lights on. And I'm going, for God's sake, it's 4 downlighters and they're 4-watt LEDs. It's 16 watts. And what is the problem here? My whole house could be put on and for 40 downlighters, it'd be equivalent of running 2 60-watt bulbs permanently all day.
Yeah.
That's nothing. And you're leaving these lights on. It's like, oh my God. She's still great. I love her a bit. She's still in that mentality. She's not come with me on this journey. She just leaves me to get on with doing this.
Yeah.
Because I do her head in most of the times anyway. So I don't think she'd want to be with me 24/7 about this. Yeah, okay. So that's there. Now I can only put up my rent 3%. Surely something can be done. Unfortunately, they can't. And for landlords and investors out there, go on to the Scottish Association of Landlords, which is SAL, and contribute towards the campaign or for the legal fees, because we're trying to raise £60,000. I think we're at 17 or 20,000 pound, £60,000, because we're challenging the government. We're challenging the government about their, we're taking them to judicial review. And we're taking them to judicial review because we're challenging them, saying you are actually prejudicing. You're prejudicing private landlords, and you're giving better rights to social landlords and everybody else, and we're the ones getting hit for this. And this isn't right under European legislation. So that's a legal challenge that's going on right now, if anybody doesn't know about that. Oh, come on, nobody got any violins out or anything like that. I'm upset. It's like, yes, I'm scared of doing more because I own both properties with no mortgage. If I get bored, yeah, you can get a fixed rate mortgage for 5 years. Yeah. You've got certainty for 5 years then. You know, the IMF's talking about interest rates dropping. I can't see that in the short term. But I can see it in the medium to long term, which is 5 years beyond. So you could hedge yourself for 5 years and you've got certainty. Love your lives. Thank you very much. That's the whole point of doing live, so we can actually answer and question things there and then. 2-bedroom flats in the harbour area of Ayr. The flats are around them are being snapped up. Yeah, absolutely. And that's when you can tell that Inspired for Success is, hey, money man. it's not necessarily money. Money is just a measure of.
Well, that is something we're going to talk about Monday as well.
Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that, the money, the measure, and all the rest of it. We'll talk about that in the Wealth Creation Show, how important that is, or how less important that is. Yeah, sorry, but you've got a capital asset at the end of the day. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course you do.
At the end of the day. Yeah. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Did I say no shit, Sherlock? I'm not really sure. Maybe I'm in their bad books now. I hope that was maybe I'm not really sure how that was meant, but yeah, you do have a capital asset at the end of the day, of course.
Maybe they could elaborate on that a wee bit.
Yeah, that's the whole point. I didn't think they'll elaborate now.
Well, maybe not.
I think I've upset them now. I have 6 properties going up in mortgage costs. Yeah, I know. We've all got that situation where we've got that. I've managed to fix quite a lot of them actually, and I'm quite happy with my tolerance, my degree of tolerance, because I've got a huge measure. Interest rates need to go up to 14% before I need to have a wee bit of think about that. But most of them are fixed anyway, so they can't go up to 14% anyway. So I'm able to take that sort of. I'm able to weather that storm.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say take that hit, because it's no about a hit. It's like, I knew this storm will come one day, so I hedge myself against it, because, you know, make hay while the sun shines, but store a wee bit away for the day when it doesn't shine anymore. And you know, as I say, most investors don't understand that. Most landlords don't understand that either, about, you know, storing away a wee bit more for when the times become a bit leaner. So you're in a position to do something about it. Pride myself on keeping my tap. See, there's a landlord's comment. I pride myself on keeping my flats in tip-top condition for tenants. Any problems, someone is there. Well done. That's exactly, and that's like most landlords. Yeah. Okay. Currently, none of this is required. My last property I put up had 8 to 6 inquiries in 72 hours. Yeah. Well, that is the current market just now, but that's exacerbated by the Scottish government's decision, and even the English government's going the same way and vilifying landlords, and landlords are now going, it's not worth it. It's not the first time I've heard from one. Even this week, I heard from a landlord saying, it's time to get out of it. It's just not giving me. It's not giving me the satisfaction anymore. That's what they're saying. Not giving me the satisfaction anymore of what I wanted out of this in the first place, was to have something to build for my retirement. But it's just not worth it anymore, because I just don't want to take the risk. Because my retirement, you know, when people get nearer to the retirement, they become worried about their investments, and therefore they change them from stock market tracker funds to bonds or cash deposits. That's what they do with their pensions, because they don't want the uncertainty in a couple of years if anything happens. So many people in the credit crunch came to me and said, I'm going to just have to continue working, because My pension's dropped like a stone.
It's gone.
My
Yeah.
private pension. I've had it. Some people in tears. Yeah. Barry's obviously having a wee bit of tete-to-tete with somebody else. Somebody said to him, do you want a medal or something? You're damn right he does. Other half's kitchen designer, so I pass on the benefit to my tenants. Absolutely brilliant. 6k allowance in England. Yes, that's for the capital gains allowance.
Yes.
So capital gains from the 6th of April this year is now £6,000 per individual instead of the 12,250 or whatever it was before. But remember, you can still double up with your spouses, so you can go 6 and 6
Both
from
get the same.
2 spouses, even though one owns and one doesn't, because you can transfer on the day of exchange for the property or the asset of love, favour, and affection for free with no capital gains to your spouse, and you can use their capital gains allowance as well. So you've still got 12 grand as spouse relationships. No, I'm just happy to provide a top-notch stuff for my tenants. There you go. They're either are having a wee bit head-to-head. Do you make a profit? Now, somebody said this is the head-to-head with the do you make a profit? Of course you have to make a profit. Everybody makes a profit. It stays in business.
Mm-hmm.
A profit is there not to put in your pocket, but to reinvest back in the business. That's an accountant speaking.
Yes.
Newsflash, accountant. No need to sell it as a cash flow, as it cash flows anyway. Yep, absolutely. I didn't do both properties outright. I would be losing. Lucky to have. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's just finish off. Jeez, there's a lot of things. I used to see lots of properties. I didn't know what I was. I used to see lots of properties, but I didn't know what I was doing.
That's about finding your niche and the gap in the local market of what properties are needed, like we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, okay. Barry Dodge actually says Benchmark is great, part of Travis Perkins Group for trade. Okay.
All right, okay.
So Benchmark for trade. There's Juicens as well. The Scottish Association of Landlords have a deal.
Juicens, yeah.
They have a deal with Juicens actually. So if you're a member of the Scottish Association of Landlords, you get access to discounter trades as well, and access to better insurance with the same people actually you would pay off the street. You actually get a better deal with them for going through and being a member of the Scottish Association of Landlords. That's just one of the things that the insurance. So you're almost like a community buy in bulk and get better discounts as a result. Do you both use letting agents? I do now, but never used to. Yeah, I use letting agents. Well, I use obviously Fife Properties. I built that for that very purpose. So there you go, Richard. But you can't see you on TikTok. You can only see you on the screen. You can only hear you. Okay, I think we're done here. I think we're nearly there. Oh, it's you again. Hey, handsome. She's caught up with me again. She was here last week, mind. Yeah, okay. It's maybe Richard you're talking to. Well, you can't see you. I think it's time to get an LLC, whatever that is. Not really sure what that is. And I'm not starting to get into a conversation with Hey Handsome, because she's saying other things as well, or he's saying other things as well. Rob Boy says the taxman loves me. Yeah, I used to get a good kitchen deal at B&Q, and also used utility warehouse card for cash back off my bills. Yeah, great idea. I've got a BA business cards and BA personal cards and that, because you get AVS points for just doing the same as what you do in a normal credit card. So you may as well get them. At the end of the day, that's it, Richard. Good. Thank you very much for coming on. Final words on this, just to finish off.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to wrap up on topic for today, I think the gaps in the market, and I think an important one for me was, when you find a gap in the market, don't be afraid if you think, oh, no one else is doing this. That's a really good point, because you might have found the gap that no one else is capitalising on.
Yeah, and not just run it by us.
Yeah, play to your strengths, and obviously, if you're going to be an investor and you want to work with a local agent, be that popular figure that people like to go to and like to work with. Be transparent, be nice, be friendly. And
that's a hell of a job for me.
And then just before we finish up, the Wealth Creation Show on Monday at 12:30 will be what is the true meaning of wealth. That'll be really good. We touched on some things today, but didn't want to elaborate because it'll take away from Monday. So
that'll be a real eye opener for a lot of people about what a private landlord and private investor actually, and how they think.
That would be a really good one.
Because I'm probably that typical sort of person that's like that. So the Wealth Creation Show will show that to everybody.
Yeah, Monday at 12:30, and that's us for today.
We're not trying. By the way, we're not trying to change anybody's minds about what private landlords are. We're just telling you what we are. Whether you want to change your mind or no is entirely your decision. But the ramifications of what's coming, and because of the vilification of private landlords by the Scottish government, is pretty immense. And a lot of them are leaving, and the person that's going to suffer the most is the tenant. That's it.
Ultimately, it will be.
Yeah. And you know, to leave you on a sad note, effectively that's what's going to happen, and that's what my biggest and deepest concern is. It's like, we'll still survive and we'll still go, and I keep saying to everybody, I'm still buying. It'll make no difference to me anyway what the Scottish government do, because they'll come and go. But the person that suffers in the short term is the tenant, because of their stupidity and the fact that they don't understand the commercial reality and how this big jigsaw fits in, because they're academics. They don't actually understand commercial world, and they've not. I've now got the answers. They've not consulted anybody on this. They've not really consulted anybody on the legislation before they implemented it. They've not consulted any think tanks, any real big stakeholders. They never even consulted the Scottish Association of Landlords as a landlord body, but they consulted the Housing Association body, and that's why they've got something sorted out for them. But they just refused to engage with private landlords at all, and just vilified us. So they've shot themselves in the foot, and the worst is yet to come, unfortunately, for the tenant. It's not really going to be the landlord, because they're just going, I'll just sell up and exit, because the market's still really good for me. So I'll just sell, move on. Doesn't affect me. It'll affect the tenants, though. Yeah. And on that note, thanks very much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jim, and thanks for everybody that's interacted. And we will see you Monday 12:30.